in passing, people just being like, oh, you could just do it as a hobby. And I'm like, it's not a hobby. Like, it's serious to me. I think for a long time I thought doctors could fix me, or my parents could fix me, or if I had a partner, he could fix me. But now I'm like, you know what, Olivia, like, this is yours. It's very empowering. When it gets really, really bad, that's really, really hard. But I'm also like, if there's anyone who knows how to deal with this, it's you.
I'm looking at this one that has my criticism of others is a reflection of my insecurities. And I'm happy for you, but I struggle because I wish you could feel some of my pain. Like, I feel like, this one, I wish you could see how great you really are, and other bullshit I say to myself. Is that inspired by the whole affirmation stuff? It's like, when you feel shit, just look at yourself in the mirror and tell yourself you're amazing.
Yeah, I mean, like, I don't know, I guess it was partly that, but I think it's just this notion of that I don't know, I don't really know how to describe it. That kind of just came to me when I was, trying to be like, oh, you're great, everything's great, your writing's great, whatever. And then I was like, you know what? Like, maybe it's actually not great. And, like, it's not meant to be, like, self-deprecating, but it's kind of just, like, I guess more a realistic view of things.
Yes, because that's the next one I saved. I've come to the realization that, in fact, I might be just ordinary.
Yeah, I think, so that, for me, comes from when you're growing up, I guess you're told that you can do anything you want, you can be anyone you want to be, you can live this amazing life. And I mean, I'm not one to say that you can't do that, and I think you definitely can, but I think also it's okay to be ordinary, and like, it's not celebrated to have an ordinary life. And I think that most of us do have ordinary lives, and day-to-day life is, I guess, just very mundane and ordinary, and I think it's okay. And I don't know why we always aim for such high things. And I mean, I'm not saying like don't aim for high things. I myself aim for high things, but I think it's just there is beauty in the everyday and the mundane and the ordinary, because that's what most of life really is.
Yes, like we all have to do our laundry.
All have to do the laundry.
It doesn't matter how much.
All have to do the shopping. Yeah, exactly.
You have to feed yourself like every single day.
And cooking every day is boring sometimes. Yeah.
Okay, can I just read? Sorry, I'm just looking at all the screenshots. I'm like, I just want to tell people about them. So this is the first thing when you go to your website, olivialangdon.com. It says, today is hard. Yesterday was hard as well. Tomorrow is looking likely to be the same. And then there's one, I'm not very good at drawing what I see. I tend to draw how I feel. Which is why, I mean, yeah, everyone just needs to go and look at the artwork. They're just getting an audio experience of it. There's something else from your website alluding to this ordinary life. What it is to be a vulnerable, fallible human trying to get through a seemingly ordinary life. And then the last two that I relate to so much, both staircases. One says, I thought I was on my way up, then I tripped and fell all the way down, which feels like the story of my life the last 3 years. And then there's someone sitting at the bottom of a staircase that says, where am I going? Which I think is definitely kind of, for me, that's like, oh, this is so hard, this life we're living, and like, where are we going? Like, it's so long, life. Well, I guess you don't know how long it is, but you just have to keep going forward one day at a time, and you have like no idea where this staircase is leading.
Yeah, I think it's important to like, try and always kind of be moving forward, even if it's just like the tiniest thing. And I think when you're having, a hard time, it's, it's still kind of, I think, just important to move forward a little bit. And also don't beat yourself up if you are moving backwards or you do go back a step, because I think that's okay as well. But I think, maybe just moving forward a little bit is okay as well.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Okay, shall we get into how you grew up?
Yeah, okay. So I grew up in Melbourne. I had a really lovely childhood. I felt very loved and supported. I have 2 younger brothers and 2 lovely parents. I think I was just surrounded by love, and I was never told not to do anything. I was always supported with whatever choices I made, and I've done so many strange things. Like, I did taxidermy for a few years, and I used to do fencing, and I used to play the piano and sing Missy Higgins, and I'm the worst singer, but like it was fun. I've done so many different things, and I was never told not to do them, or like, my parents always encouraged us just to follow whatever we wanted. Yeah, but my childhood was really good. I really look back on it with fond memories, and I had my grandparents, my mum's parents were a really big, important part of my life. They were always there for, every milestone, birthdays, everything, but they were also just there all the time through the mundane, I guess, as well. So I had a really nice childhood.
And why did you decide to pursue art?
Well, I guess I was always a pretty creative child, but I wouldn't say I was creative as in like I was an amazing drawer or painter or anything. I'd say just the way I thought was very creative. And I remember like, when I asked my mom now, she's always like, yeah, you were very like, you used to just watch people and be kind of deep in thought. And I think that's like the biggest part of my creativity is just my ability to observe the world and people. And that's what I really love, is actually just watching people and talking to people. And I guess I got into it, I probably started taking it really seriously when I was about 16. I decided I wanted to be an artist, and I remember going to the careers counsellor, and she just laughed and said, Olivia, don't be stupid. She said, you make no money out of that. And now I think she was right. For so long, she said that to me, I was like, oh my God, what a horrible thing to say. But now I'm like, oh God, I should have listened to her. She's so right. I should have done like arts at Melbourne or something. But I started, I guess, by writing. I love writing, and I guess I kind of classify myself more as a writer now. And I wrote probably as a way to kind of like think. It was kind of part of my process just to get through the day. I never kind of wrote for anybody, I guess. It was almost like I kind of kept diaries ever since I was young. Like I have diaries now with bits of hair and bits of my brother's hair from when we were like 10. I've got like teeth taped in diaries. Like that's very, very bizarre. But I've got like diaries really from when I was a child. But I got into art. I was, I loved it in high school. Year 11 and 12, I really kind of just dived into it. My folios were like a meter thick. I used to carry them everywhere with me. And I was just obsessed. Like I would stay up late, like drawing. I got into taxidermy. Like I used to taxidermy mice in the garage at like midnight when I was like 17.
Where did you get the mice from?
The pet shop. No, I didn't kill them. They were like feeder mice for snakes. So they came in like Crivact, kind of, like, 3 at a time you get. I didn't
What
kill
do you
them.
mean? They were dead, but
they were kind of like,
why didn't the snakes eat? Oh, sorry. If you have pet snakes,
you can give them to the snakes, but you just buy them in the freezer. In fact,
wow. So you were buying them and then stuffing them.
Yeah. So I was like, I did a lot of YouTube research, and I did a lot of, stuffing of mice. I guess it was.
What do you stuff them with?
Cotton wool, and then pins for their eyes. And then the stitching, oh my God, was so bad. Like they had like massive, looked like horrible scars on their back because I was just terrible at. I was so bad at taxidermy.
How did you
get into that?
Yeah.
I don't know. I've always had a fascination with death, and I used to like take photos of roadkill everywhere I went, and just taxidermy seemed like a natural kind of progression in a weird way. And then when I was 21, I actually did an internship in America with a taxidermy artist for a few months. We did like a rabbit and a quail, and I remember like trying to get them back through customs for Australia was like a nightmare. I literally had them like on my lap the whole way back from New York, and I got them to Australia. I was like so, you know, just like proud. I was like, yes, I got these back. Like it's been such a effort. And we just got a little puppy Labrador, and she wasn't allowed inside, but Mum was outside gardening, and she ran in and she ate the whole of my taxidermy quail and rabbit. And I was like, I really think that was the start of my demise, like the start of my mental health issues.
Really?
From there. Not like actually, but it kind of like all just kind of got bad from then. I don't blame Pepper the dog, but...
Was the dog okay? Presumably?
Yeah, I didn't care. I was going to taxidermy her next if she didn't make it, but no, she was fine. She didn't really mind. I mean, she ate them. She was happy.
Because presumably there's like stuff inside.
Yeah, there is lots of stuff.
What, have you been to the taxidermy shop in Angel? Is it still
I
there?
have, yeah, it is still there. It's never open, but I have been there. I walk past it all the time. Yeah, that is quite the shop. But so I think that's how my art started, really. And then I did a diploma. I never actually got into art school the first time, which made me think, oh my God, am I a bad artist? Like, is this ever going to go anywhere? And I ended up doing a diploma at RMIT of visual art, which actually probably was the best thing I ever did, because it was very like basic, as in like how to hold a pencil properly, how to mix colors, how to like clean a brush, stuff that you actually don't learn at art school at like a master's or a bachelor level. So that was really, I think, really important that I did that. And
So did you feel like, did you have a sense of whether you were good or bad, or you were just like loved art and it did like nothing was going to stop you, and it didn't really matter how someone else perceived your art?
Yeah, I guess I was always very like just passionate, and it's almost like you just have to kind of get it out of you. It's almost like, yeah, you just have to kind of get it out of your system and make it or do it. But actually it's funny because like after being at art school for so long, I actually have realized that I don't actually enjoy making art. Like I don't physically enjoy making art anymore. Not anymore, but maybe I never did really enjoy it, but I felt kind of pressure that I was at art school that I had to like be making physical art, when actually really what I wanted to do was probably write. And like it wasn't really until I moved to London a few years ago to do my master's, and I think it was a very strange course because it was very like, it was a master's of fine art, but we had like a DJ, we had like graphic designers coming in, I think we had like a dancer, so it was very like open as to who was coming into the course. And I was really encouraged to write, actually. The head of the program was like a writer herself, and I felt really encouraged and just supported to actually finally write. And I think it was during lockdown when we couldn't physically go into the studios and make stuff. Like you could really only work from home. So I just ended up writing, and I think I just would like to keep doing that. Yeah.
And so did you have any sense of, like, obviously the career counsellor made that comment about how you're going to make money.
Yeah.
Did you feel that pressure going through and studying, or you just thought, I'll figure it out after I graduate?
I think there always is that thought, like, how am I actually going to monetize my art? And I think I know that every artist kind of feels that. And I think it's only like, I think it's actually out of art school, such a small percentage actually go on to be artists. I think it's only like, I think it's less than like, I don't want to say figures, but I think maybe it's like less than probably 10% that actually continue on to be artists. And, you know, maybe they come out to be more like do other creative things, but like, I guess fine art is not many people end up doing it. I know it's probably because you can't really make a lot of money. And I think, every artist that I do know works on the side or like works part-time. And I think it's trying to have that balance with like working part-time and being able to still do your art, because it's not like it's something, you know, it's kind of like something that you have to do in a way. It's not like something you really choose to do, but I think you have to choose to want to do it as well. And I feel like so many people, like, you know, say to me, oh, it must be so great just to be in your studio and like paint all day or write all day or whatever. And it's kind of not really like that. Like, I think if you take it more seriously, like a job, you kind of have to take it seriously, because if you don't take it seriously, other people won't take your work seriously. And that's what I'm kind of like learning. I think I used to kind of just, be a bit like, oh, it's my work. Like, it's not that good. Like, yeah, have a look at my website. But I'm actually like, you know, this is who I am and this is actually what I want to do. And like, this is how I kind of identify and define myself, is a lot of my kind of creativity and my art. But I think creativity can come from, like, it doesn't have to just be by making art. Like, I think it can just be living a creative life, you know, like even just like taking a different route home from the supermarket or cooking something different for dinner. Like, I think everyone has, you know, the potential to live a creative life, whether you like are a fine artist or not, you know.
Mm-hmm. And did you have, that just really resonates with me, the like, it's not something you're choosing to do. It's like this self-expression thing that has to come. It, like, because with this podcast, people ask, like, it's not like a financial decision to make
clearly
this
not.
podcast.
I know.
It's like some deeper thing that's like, I have to bring this into the world, but it's so scary because it's so imperfect. And how do you deal with that? Well, first I want to ask, how were your parents when you were going on this journey? Like, were they like, are you gonna get a job? Like, or would they just like pursue whatever you're interested in and it will work out?
I mean, I don't know. I guess they still are incredibly supportive, and I think I really suffered with my mental health when I was kind of, I guess, it got really, really bad at about 2021. And I think from then, I think my parents have just, you know, I guess they're just happy to see me, I guess, happy when I am feeling good. Like, they're just, I don't know. I never feel any pressure to like change careers or like, I mean, obviously like you do have to be able to make money and stuff, but I never feel pressure to like be something that I'm not and just kind of stop my art or just like do it as a hobby, because I think people have said to me like, you know, in passing, people just being like, oh, you know, you could just do it as a hobby. And I'm like, it's not a hobby. Like, it's serious to me. Like, you know, it's not something that I just want to do for myself. And I remember my like tutor in my master's, she was like, you have to start making, like, art is a hobby when you're just doing it for yourself, but when it's for somebody else, that's when it becomes like actual art, like real art. And I don't know if I definitely agree with that, but I think it has some truth in it, because I mean, everyone kind of has a hobby that they do, you know, like whether they do embroidery or whether they play the piano, and that's fine. But I think when you want to make it a career or make something out of it, it kind of has to be for other people, and you kind of have to have other people in mind a bit when you're creating.
Yeah, definitely.
What was your other question? Sorry.
But so they did, and sorry, I didn't mean to, that probably sounded so judgmental, but I've just literally had a conversation with my dad this morning about like the joy, you know, it's like a career looks in a certain way, and it's like, Delia, when are you going to figure your life out kind of thing. So I'm like, that's why I'm so interested. That's probably why I started this podcast. It's like finding out how other people, how they grew up, like how your parents treated you. So did they kind of never made you feel pressure? I guess because this is also helpful for a mutual friend of ours, which, because that's the other thing that's funny. But we just, for audience context, we just met once on New Year's and we have mutual friends. But one of our mutual friends who maybe feels that art can never be a serious thing and you'll never make money, or that pressure, like you have to conform, you have to get an like quote unquote real job. But did your parents, like, they never made you feel like it just has to be a hobby?
No, they actually never have. And I think I've always tried to work part-time when I'm able to with my mental health, a few days a week. And I think, I don't know, I guess I'm just really, really lucky that they've never kind of pressured me to have like a traditional career. Like, I think my brothers both play AFL football, so they were never really traditional in their career choices either.
Do they?
Well, Edward still plays. He plays for Melbourne, and Tom used to play for Collingwood, but he had an injury, so he's not playing anymore.
Oh my God, I had no idea.
Yeah.
That a Melbourne footballer was on this podcast recently as well.
Really? Small world. Yeah, so I guess they never had like traditional kind of paths either, and I guess none of us really have, so I guess maybe my parents don't know what a traditional child looks like.
What do your parents do?
So my dad runs a family company which has offices kind of, a few around the world, and I think it's over like 250 years old now, so it's super old in food ingredients, so like spices, coffee, stuff like that. My mum was a landscape designer, so she's very creative, so I think she's kind of been supportive of me too as well, wanting to pursue something creative. Mm-hmm. And my dad, I think, sometimes doesn't really get it, but because he's very business focused and minded and orientated. But I think it just, all three of us never had really traditional kind of career paths. And like now my brother Tom is trying to set up his own business. None of us know what it is yet, but he's going to reveal it next week apparently. So none of us really have followed like a traditional path. I mean, we all kind of went to uni. That was one thing Dad was pretty insistent on, that we all did a degree, whatever it was in, and clearly mine was a bit, should have not done maybe. No, like, well, no, like I don't regret doing it, but it would, I mean, they teach you nothing about like how to make it, like how to monetize it and how to kind of.
Yeah, I don't think any degree. I mean,
maybe
I
no degree.
Studied maths. They didn't teach us how to make money. I don't know how you make money from maths.
I don't know how you make money, full stop. So yeah, what were we saying?
Yeah, no, that makes sense. Okay. Just getting a feel of like, so you've kind of felt free to pursue this path and support it.
Definitely.
And the other thing I wanted to read was from your final project at, damn, I didn't save it, but it's from UAL, your master's. It's like online.
God, stalker. I don't even know where that is.
I've got to do my research before I talk to people. And it says, oh yeah, it's here. Do you mind if I read it out? Do you even remember what it is?
I don't even know what it is. No.
It's your final...
Sure, you can read it.
It's your final piece. Who is Olivia Langdon? Chelsea College of Arts, Masters in Fine Art. Final work. And there's a little blurb, and it says, spending most of my 20s in and out of hospital, lining up for mushy peas and pretending I wasn't going completely insane, I used this year to reflect and go through the piles of diaries and letters I wrote when writing was all I could do. My shadow was never far behind me. This body represents not only an illness that I live with on a daily basis, but the many parts of ourselves that follow us around, the darkness that we try and hide. This shadow doll has taken many forms, and now I accept will travel with me everywhere I go. And then there's the shadow doll.
Yeah, stuffed stockings. Yeah, I don't really remember that. But yeah, no, I do remember that, yeah.
And I feel like so many... well, I feel like that's kind of this big concept in... mental health that's now talked about a lot more, and even going into more like the spiritual realm, I guess, of like the shadow. And I think they talk about it on that, have you seen that documentary, the Jonah Hill one.
Yeah, I love that documentary.
Yes,
yeah.
And they talk him sitting down with his therapist, and they talk about the shadow. I'm pretty sure, or maybe they call it the X or something.
Yeah.
But it is kind of this concept. And I think everyone has that. Yeah, the parts of yourself that maybe you reject.
Yeah, I don't really want to acknowledge or know about.
Or you're like pushed down, or...
I think everyone has that part of themselves, and I think it's a lot of people don't really, want to acknowledge it or think about it or accept it. And I think it's maybe the more you push it down, the stronger it kind of comes up. And I think for me, that's a part of me that I really had to learn to live with and to accept. Because I really think in a way, like, acceptance is the umbrella of life. Like, you have to be able to accept things. It doesn't mean you have to like them or agree with them, but I think once you accept them, you can kind of move on. And I think for me, that shadow doll, well, that was more in relation to my mental health. I felt there was this kind of shadow following me everywhere, that I was going to get sick any minute, and it was also bigger than my mental health. It was like parts of me that I kind of wish I didn't have or don't want to talk about, or like stuff like that. So that was a work. I actually took that shadow doll around with me. I was living in Edinburgh at the time, and I took it like on the bus. I took it to IKEA. I took it back to London to uni. I took it kind of around with me for a while and just kind of carried it and photographed it in different locations. And yeah, it was an interesting project, actually. I think it was interesting for other people watching me carry this big black doll around, but yeah.
And did you learn to, like, love the doll, or kind of...
Yeah, I think I've learned to accept it. I don't always love it, and I don't always want to acknowledge it, but I think I accept it now, and that it's part of me, and that it probably will always be part of me, or it will maybe transform a little bit into different things. But I think it's... Yeah, I really do accept it now, and I think it makes it easier to live with it and to kind of move forward. And yeah, and I guess for me, like I said, it was about my mental health, and I think accepting my mental health was a huge part of my recovery from being really unwell in my 20s. And I just kind of like surrendered to it in a way. Like, I stopped kind of trying to fight. And I think actually when I first got really sick at 21, I did kind of like, I got diagnosed, and then I just kind of like surrendered and stopped trying to fight my illness. And I just got like, I just allowed myself, like, this was all like subconscious. I just allowed myself to get really, really unwell, like so unwell. I was, in hospital a lot of the time. I was just, very sick. And I think you just kind of have to surrender to it in a way. And even now when I have periods of being unwell, I kind of just like surrender to it and just accept that I might have to be home and in bed for a few days, or, not be able to see anyone for a few weeks. And I think for a long time I beat myself up about that. Like, oh God, I should be going out tonight. I should be going to that thing. I should be seeing people. I should be exercising, going to the gym, like all this kind of stuff. But I think once you just accept that, you know what, life is really hard right now, I'm just going to like do what I can. And even if it's just like a walk around the block, like the other day I booked a gym class, and you get fined if you don't turn up to the gym, when you scan in, if you don't scan in. So I actually walked up to the gym, I scanned in, and then I walked out, so I didn't get fined. And I was like, Olivia, like, what are you doing? Just like, you're pretty much at the class. But yeah, I just couldn't do it. But I think...
But maybe leaving the house and
exactly
going on that walk is like
was
enough
the big
for that
thing,
day.
yeah. Exactly. And I think you just really have to accept that doing not enough is okay. And it's okay not to see people. But yeah, I mean, I still do beat myself up about that too, but yeah.
So what happened when you were 20?
When I probably got first sick at about like 17, 18. When I was 18, I actually went on a gap year to England. And I was in the middle of the countryside there were 4 of us. We were all like 17, 18, super young, very naive.
You'd finished school? Just
finished school, went over for the year, working at like boarding school, and I just had very strange experiences. Like I'd never had really heard anything about mental health before. All I knew that my grandma was a bit crazy and she had big mental health issues, and my auntie, but that was all that was my picture of mental health, just someone being very crazy. And I had these strange experiences. Like I would get kind of a lot of energy and kind of very manic, and I'd see like lights in the sky and kind of think I was the chosen one. And they'd say like, I remember that I saw like a fish in like kind of neon lights in the sky, and then I'd get super depressed after that, like really, really depressed. I couldn't leave my room. I couldn't go to like work or anything.
And that just happened during the day, like randomly?
Yeah, it would happen for like a few weeks at a time, and then I'd kind of get depressed for a few weeks, and then I think it happened 2 or 3 times that year. But
like seeing visual things.
Yeah, it was more just like seeing kind of stuff in the sky. Like I wasn't like hallucinating during the day and stuff. It was more just like I would see stuff in the night sky.
Okay.
It was kind of very bizarre.
When you were just walking home or doing something?
Yeah, when we were like out at night, or when I was walking home or something, or if we'd been to the pub or something.
Okay. But it was clear, you could tell it wasn't to do with being drunk or anything.
No, because I've never really been a big drinker either. And yeah, but it was very bizarre, and I had no idea what was happening. I thought I was literally going mad. Like, I didn't know what was wrong with me. I didn't even think mental health was a thing. I didn't even consider mental health could be like an issue or something.
Did you tell anyone?
No, I didn't tell anybody.
Or was it something where you could ask of like someone else, like, are you seeing this in the sky? Or it was obvious that your mind was creating something that wasn't there?
No, I like really believed I could see it, but I never talked. I've always hidden my mental health. Like even now when I get really sick, people probably wouldn't notice that I'm unwell. I don't know, and I kind of beat myself up about why I do that as well. But yeah, I got really sick, and then I went home after a year, and I started my diploma of visual art, and I was kind of okay for that year. I probably suffered a bit of depression, but I wasn't like unwell enough that anyone would really notice, or I would really notice. And then yeah, I remember I had a 21st birthday, had like a big afternoon tea thing, and I remember being like, I don't want to be here, and I kind of walked out the door to leave, and I was like, oh my god, Olivia, you can't leave your own birthday. But I just wanted to leave. I didn't want to be there. I didn't want to speak to anybody. And that was when I kind of knew something was kind of going on. And then yeah, I just got really, really sick. Yeah, after that. And I had probably 7 years in and out of hospital. Most of the time I felt like I was in hospital. Yeah, it was really hard. But I think it was, yeah, and I think, it must have been really hard. I know it was extremely hard for my family and my friends. But you don't really notice it at the time. You're kind of like so self-aware. Like you're so not aware of anyone else.
Yeah, well, I guess because you're battling like really dark thoughts. Is that kind of what it was?
Yeah, I was very, very depressed. I was very suicidal. Had a few like horrible experiences, overdoses and stuff. And very strange experiences, like kind of very surreal, kind of almost like humorous experiences, like just funny, weird things that were so weird they kind of seemed like they weren't really happening. But stuff was like so weird in hospital, like the people you meet and like just the food, like every single day was like chicken of some, like chicken curry or chicken Kiev or chicken schnitzel, like every kind of form of chicken. I still now have issues eating chicken, but like just, it was such a weird time in my life. And I think I was really forced to know myself and to grow up really quickly in a way. And I mean, it's been hard because I do look back at those years and I really lost my whole 20s to illness. And I never got to do those things like have boyfriends or move house or, go to university or go to college. I never got to do go out and get drunk. I never really got to do what 20-year-olds do. And I think that's been really hard for me, that I lost my whole 20s to illness. And I do kind of grieve that, and it does make me kind of sad, but I also know that I got a lot out of it that other people haven't really ever experienced or come to. Like, I think, you know, I was really fortunate that I had amazing support from my friends and family, and I had really great doctors, and I was really well looked after. But, I mean, that doesn't necessarily make it any easier, but yeah, I guess I was just forced to know myself quite quickly, and I guess also really to look my demons in the eye. I think that was the main thing. I had to really, like, I think to get better, I had to, like, really look at this illness in the eye. And that was pretty scary and confronting. And I think mental health is very confronting, and you are very vulnerable. And yeah, it was a very confronting time in my life, actually. Yeah.
Do you feel like you're out of it now, or it's still something you live with?
It's still definitely something I live with. I get sick, I guess probably maybe twice a year, maybe once or twice a year, probably for a few months at a time even sometimes. Like, I've really only just come out of being really depressed in the last few days. I'm still kind of like up and down a bit, but yeah, probably since November I've been not that well and kind of gone in and out of really bad periods, but been quite unstable. And I think it's hard because it's so disruptive to everyday life. Like, you can't just like do what you normally do. Like, your routine totally goes out the door. Like, you stop seeing friends, you stop going out. It's just, I think the hardest thing about it is just so disruptive, and you don't know when it's gonna finish. You don't know. Like, it's hard, it's frustrating because you do everything you can to get better, and I feel like I try and take such good care of myself, and yet it still gets me and like finds me, this illness. And it's debilitating. Yeah.
And it's like you can't get out of bed during those periods?
Yeah, some days I just can't leave the house. I can't get out of bed. I just eat really shit food and then feel terrible, obviously, and then you feel terrible, so you eat bad food again, just like this cycle. Can't leave the house, don't want to see anyone. Although I've tried, I guess as I've grown up and I've kind of got used to the illness, not used to it, but kind of accepted it a lot more, I kind of know what I need to do and what I don't need to do. And I think there's a very fine line for me between like wanting to stay in bed for 3 days, but knowing it's probably more helpful for me to go and see a friend or call somebody and go for a walk. Or the other side of the line is I know I need to stay in bed, and I just know I need to stay in bed for 3 days and not see anyone. So I think it's like kind of for me thinking what is most helpful for me and being really honest with myself. If maybe it is a better idea to see a friend, even if I don't really want to, but it might make me feel a bit better. Or if it really is just better to stay in bed and not speak to anyone, turn on my phone. So I think it's knowing yourself and knowing your illness, and yeah, just, I guess, again, just kind of not surrendering to it in a way that you kind of let it defeat you, but just kind of letting it be there and being comfortable with it being by your side. And just, I don't know, I think of my illness as like a little bear or something that kind of needs to be looked after. I guess a part of me that really needs to be looked after, that I need to like feed it good food, like nutrition, and I need to like help it go for a walk every day, or I need to like just love it and care for it, and like don't judge it so much and don't be so hard on yourself. Because there's this really great quote actually that I'm just going to find that I refound the other day, and I think it is so true. The wise man accepts his pain, endures it, but does not add to it. And that's Marcus Aurelius. So I think it's really important to accept your pain for what it is, but don't add to your pain.
You found that quote so quickly. Sorry.
It's just like the last one on my phone. I keep screenshotting it so I remember it. But yeah, I think it's important to feel the pain, but don't add to the pain, because the pain's enough as it is.
Yeah, so I listened to, Stephen Fry.
Oh, I love Stephen Fry.
He has bipolar, I think.
Yeah.
And he talks about it. It's like a storm. So it's like, it's like the weather. So you don't argue with the weather, like you accept it. And so when one of those periods comes over, it's like accepting that's how it is. That's kind of your thing with like, maybe you do have to just stay in bed for 3 days. It's like knowing like, okay, the storm's here, but it will pass. Because I think that's the thing that I really struggle with when I have one of those down periods is what the pain I'm adding on top of it, that it's like, oh my God, this is never going to end. I'm trapped here forever. This is, and the falling down the stairs thing, that it's like, how am I back? It's just punishing myself. And I think with this as well, I felt like so much pressure. Yeah, it's the pressure, because it's like, oh yeah, I was depressed and now like I'm fine. And then when you get depressed again, it's like, what the fuck? Like I already went through that. It's like, I'm not allowed. And then it's like, you're a failure. It's like, fuck, why is this still happening? But yeah, I think I have, but I don't know if you went through this, and maybe that's what you were alluding to before, but I definitely went through this period where I didn't want to get better. Like I liked being a victim to it or something.
Self-sabotage.
Yeah. It was like, there is something. Well, I think that's the hard thing with mental health, right? With all the labels and stuff, like it can be quite scary, and then you can think like, oh my God, there is something wrong with me and I'm not okay and I can't look after myself, and like I need someone else or something else to make me quote unquote better. And then, but then that meant neglecting to do things like try and like go for a walk, like try and get sunlight, try to eat well, and like giving up that personal accountability. But it sounds like you are really like have the attitude where you want to be healthy, which is really good.
Well, I think it's interesting because I live on my own in London over here, and I think when I do get sick, it's just me. And when I was living in Melbourne, I was still at my parents' because I was so unwell and they were really doing everything for me. And I think when I moved to London, I remember the first time I got sick, I was like, shit, I have to like deal with this myself. Like if I'm feeling shit at like 5 a.m, I can't call my mum, like, or, she might be asleep or whatever. So I can't just like rely on everybody for this. Like I have to deal with this myself. And it was so scary at the start, and I thought I couldn't do it. And I was like, what am I doing here? Like, but I find it very empowering. Like now I kind of hold myself accountable for my illness. Like I don't ever expect anyone to fix me. I think for a long time I thought like doctors could fix me, or my parents could fix me, or if I had a partner, he could fix me. And that was like a big thing for me. Like I really thought someone else could fix me. But now I'm like, you know what, like Olivia, like this is yours. You have to fix yourself. You can't rely on anyone to like, obviously I have a lot of support, but I can't rely on anyone to make me get better or to fix me or whatever. So I think that's been a huge learning curve, and it's very empowering now actually, because I'm like, you know what, I can manage this. Like I can live with this and deal with it. And when it gets really, really bad, that's really, really hard. But I'm also like, you know what, if there's anyone who knows how to deal with this, it's you. And like, I can call my doctor here and say like, I'm feeling really bad. What should I do? But he doesn't know exactly what he doesn't live with it. He doesn't live with me. So it's me who knows myself best. And I think that's took me a long time to get to that point. But I feel like now I'm at that point where I know what to do myself best, and I know what I need to do and what I don't need to do, and what's helpful and what's not. And even a thing I find really helpful myself is when I don't want to see people and I feel guilty for not seeing anyone or seeing friends, I'll go and sit in a cafe with people around me, and I'll just sit there and do some writing or listen to people's conversations and write them down, or I just have a coffee and stare out the window. And I find that helpful in a way that you're with people, but you're not with people in a way. You don't have to, there's no expectation to talk to anybody, especially not in London. You don't have to talk to anybody you know, you literally just order your coffee and sit down and then you leave when you're done, you know, like but you're around people. I think it's important to kind of be around somebody or people, or like not friends necessarily, but just, yeah, kind of in some proximity to other people.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And so what was it like moving to London? Were you worried about it, especially because it all started when you were over here, right?
Yeah.
Gap year.
Yeah, actually, no, that didn't really like affect me that it started over here. It was more just like I kind of got sick at 20, probably got better around 28, got better about 26, 27, 28. Moved over here when I was 28 or 27, I can't remember. And I got really, really sick within the first few months I was here. And I was actually going to go home. I thought, this is too hard. I can't do this. But I was really determined to live the life I wanted to live and not let this illness dictate my reality or dictate how I'm going to live my life. And so I live with this illness, and it's really fucking hard, but like I'm determined to live the life I want to live. And yes, I have to like manage my expectations and have things in place and realize that I can't do everything or can't do things other people can do easily. You know, I think, but that's okay. Like, you have to kind of accommodate your illness in a way, and I kind of think of it as like a little thing that needs to be like cared for and looked after, and then it will kind of stay small.
What kind of things do you feel like you can't do that other people can?
Well, I don't drink anymore, which I think everyone's like, oh, that's so great, you know, it's so easy not to drink, but it is actually very socially hard when you don't drink and everyone else is drinking around you. I have to be very like strict on my bedtime. I feel like dating's really difficult because I go through these periods of being like very unwell for a few months at a time, and then I kind of get better, then I get sick again. I just find it's hard to have stability in my life. Like, you know, I've got a gym membership and then I don't go for 3 months. I'm like, what am I doing? And then, you know, stuff like that.
I feel like that's most people.
Yeah, maybe that is most people. That is actually happens when I am fine. So that's no exception. But yeah, just little things like just having to kind of like really look after myself. I guess I have to sacrifice the fact that like I probably, yeah, just have to manage expectations, I guess, in a way.
But I guess on the other hand, can you see that it's like maybe the depth or like the beauty of the art you're able to produce can only come from like that kind of light comes with the darkness or something like that? Or is that just like a terrible cliche that I'm saying?
No, I think there's some quote, I can't remember who said it, but that from your darkest pain comes the greatest work or something. That's kind of paraphrasing it. But so I think if I never have all this pain and these mood swings and all these things, I would never be able to probably write. Well, I wouldn't write about what I write about now. I don't know what I'd write about. I really don't know what a stable life would look like for me. I might be a lawyer. I might be a nurse. I don't know what I'd be, you know? Like, I don't know what my life would be like. And I think a big part of my creativity is linked to my illness, definitely. And my illness is linked to my creativity. I think I can't even separate the two. So yeah, I think in a way my most beautiful writing comes from when I'm at my lowest point or when I'm really in total blackness and darkness. I feel like that's where I can really, there's kind of a tipping point where I get so sick I can't write anymore. But when I'm in that sweet spot, I find I just almost have to write. Like I get this weird like urge even on the tube or the bus or like just to take notes or to write or like type it in my phone. Like I just have to do it almost to like survive. So yeah, I think it's definitely, my art comes from that kind of pain, 100%.
Yeah, it's interesting because there's this charity called Batir, and the CEO was on this podcast recently, Nick Brown, and he's talking about people who have had experience with some kind of mental health, whatever, addiction, self-harm, depression, and they learn how to tell their stories, like kind of like how we're doing now, I guess, but then they go into schools and they tell that story, and it's really cool because then people hear, it's like the whole thing you'll hear, because, you know, mental health is like talked about all the time and people are kind of like, what does that even mean? Is this like young people like like being soft or something? But when you actually hear, which, you know, as you're saying, it's like before older people in the family, it's just like, oh, they're crazy, or like they have
the ones that never come to Christmas, or like the ones that just don't turn up to things, you know.
But yeah, anyway, so then they're like telling it to school, so then other school people can be like, oh wow, like I'm actually have experienced that and this person's saying it, and now it's like the idea is they're more likely to get help, and it's like reducing the stigma around it, like. But he was saying, so the people are generally in a good place when they're talking about it because they're kind of, it's like years removed from what happened or whatever it is. And he was saying like there's an argument about, well, yeah, when you should share, like if you should only, because that's also with this podcast. Yeah, I feel like people have kind of said that. It's like, oh, make sure you don't like speak publicly about anything if you're not in a good place. And I think that's why I had the pressure of like, oh my god, I can't be depressed because I've started the podcast and that's against the rules of matchmaking. But sorry, I'm getting to the point. The point was, he was saying there's some argument about whether you should share in those points of darkness. And I was thinking, but like didn't say it on the podcast, that's what like so much of art is. It's like all the music you hear about heartbreak and all, you know, and, you know, Van Gogh, like classic example of so many, but okay, this is like clearly showing my limited art knowledge. But
no, it's true. Like it does, so much great art comes from misery and pain and suffering. And like, you know, they talk about like having, you know, like removing the gene, you know, working out what the gene for bipolar is and, you know, taking, or what's the word? Like, you know, like removing it from, what, like, I don't know what the terminology is. But anyway, getting rid of the gene for bipolar. And it's like, well, so much of great art, like Van Gogh and like Stephen Fry, like so much amazing stuff has come from people who suffer these huge mood swings. And like, if you just eradicate that, like you take away so much beautiful stuff and art. And like, yes, it comes from pain, some of it, and some of it comes from suffering and everything, but that's what life is, you know, like, I don't know, I can't imagine my life without pain and suffering. And even, you know, I think also the thing with mental health is we talk about it in such a negative way, like, oh, I've got like, you know, this, or I've got this, and like she's got that and he's got that. And it is a horrible thing to have, and like it's really, really hard to live with, and it's debilitating. And I'm not saying that it's really that good, but I think we need to talk about it in a different way, because people who are getting diagnosed are kids who are growing up and they hear how bad mental health is, but yet a lot of them are going to suffer from it. You know, I don't think it's all so negative. Like we need to change the narrative a bit. I think, you know, and I'm saying this not feeling so awful today, but mental health, I think, can teach you something, and you have to almost find something in it in a way, because otherwise it is just a whole really horrible, depressing thing you have. And I think for me, that's a big part of my thing, is that I could view my illness in such a horrible way that it ruins my life and that it's terrible and everything in my life is terrible because of it. But I have to also remind myself what I've learned from it. And like it forces me to live kind of, I guess, a healthier life in a way. And it's forced me to know who I am and to know what my triggers are, to know what my early warning signs are. And like I said before, if there's anyone who knows how to deal with it, it's me. I know the best. And I really, you know, I think I know myself because of it. And I don't know if I ever would know myself that well because of it. So I think it needs to be changed slightly. Not that it's a great thing, but it's also not like the end of the world if you have a mental health issue. Like, you can live a good life.
Yeah. I think, that's kind of the point I got to when I was home recently. That it was like, it's like because my brother, one of my brothers has diabetes, and my oldest brother suicided, and I think of it, I came to realize it's like, And yeah, my brother's son has sadly been also diagnosed with diabetes really young. And I realized, like, that's a life-threatening illness. So there is so much care that goes into that. Like, you have to be eating all the right foods. You have to take insulin this many times a day. You have, like, it's, like, so serious, especially for a child. So it's, like, all this care and attention goes into it. And then I thought, there's another life-threatening illness in this family that has killed someone.
Yeah. And
if I'm have that same susceptibility or whatever, I need to the same amount of care and attention that goes into something like diabetes. Like that needs to also go into me and being like, and just being like, okay, this is what it is. Yeah, obviously it's not ideal, but it's also like everyone has to deal with stuff, you know? Something, like, so it's like, this is my thing that then I have to be really serious about. Yeah. And it's just, that's the thing with mental health, right? It's obvious when you have a physical illness, like everyone can see, okay, you have a broken leg, like everyone's helping you, like get that down the stairs or whatever. And with mental health, people can't see it and people don't understand it because we don't talk about it. But now we're talking about it. And there's all the shame and everything. But it's like, oh, no, shit, this is something where you just have to be, like, really responsible. And, with what you're saying, it's like, oh, okay, well, I don't drink and I bedtimes and all this stuff. But it's like, oh, this is, it's like, oh, okay, well, now I'm actually living, like, a healthier life.
Definitely. Yeah, I think you have to take it very seriously, any mental health issue, because it can kill and it does kill. And I think it's very important to take your illness seriously. But I think it's also important for young people to know that it's not the end of the world if they do have a mental illness. Like, you still can live a good life. And I think I need to try and remember that, even though, like, I have a serious debilitating illness, I can still live a good life with it. And yes, at times it completely, like, wipes me off my feet and I'm just can't do anything, but that doesn't mean I can't live a good life. And I think you just have to, that's kind of what I go back to, like, having an ordinary life, you know, like, why is it so bad to be ordinary, you know, when it's better than being nothing, or, you know, it's just, an ordinary life is, you know, like a great achievement for me, because, like, you know, at times I really didn't even think I'd ever leave the house again. And, you know, even just doing small things, I think you've just got to kind of, like, which I find really difficult, is just to celebrate the small things when you are unwell, you know, like, even if it's just walking to the end of the street and back, just being like, you know what, like, that's okay today, like, I did it. That's, you know, just not being so beating yourself up, because it, like that quote, like, it adds to the suffering and the pain, you know, when you add on all that other shit, like, oh, I should be doing this, should be doing that. And, like, should is the worst word ever, you know. Like, should.
Yeah, I guess it's also, like, letting go of the goal orientation stuff and being present and like experiencing, like, maybe the ordinary life is like going to, okay, this is gonna, for some reason this always comes up, how I love, like, going into nature and just, like, going into the bushes, which makes you look really weird because only little children do that. But then it's like, that's what, it's just like looking at, like, a leaf and being like, wow, this is amazing, this is so beautiful. And you're not achieving anything, like, looking at the sky that's beautiful. But I guess it's really hard to stay in touch with that when you're in a really down place.
I remember I was walking down the street the other day and it was raining, and I honestly didn't realise it was raining till about 10 minutes in, and I was like, oh my god, I'm completely soaked. Like, I was just so not present and so unaware of my surroundings. But yeah, I think if you can just, kind of see what you think see what you can see or feel or touch, or I don't know, sometimes those things kind of help a bit and sometimes they don't, so I don't know.
What was I going to ask you? Have you struggled with shame throughout any of this?
I think the biggest shame would for me is not being in a relationship when I see, I guess it's not even all my friends. I guess it's just I compare myself to people I went to school with, like people who are getting married and have the white picket fence and kids and beautiful looking dogs. I think that's when I kind of feel like maybe my life would have been different if I never had an illness. But then I also have to remember that I'm doing pretty cool things myself, you know, and I'm doing actually what I want to do and I'm living the life I want to live. So I have to remind myself that. But I think, yeah, I don't feel ashamed that I have an illness as such, which is actually, it's weird because like I've been so sick really for the last few months. And friends, I've kind of stopped, you know, calling or messaging anybody. And when anyone ever does message me, I'm just like, oh, sorry, I'm busy, or like I can't. These are like my really close friends. And I'm like, why can't I just say, actually, I can't leave the house. I've been in bed for a week. Can you come and take me for a walk? You know, like, I think I feel shame like that. Like, I don't know why. I'm not, like, ashamed of my illness. I don't feel shame myself. But then when it comes to, like, people asking me how I am, I would never be like, yeah, I'm actually feeling really depressed. I put on this, like, facade that, like, everything's fine and, like, I'm okay and normal, which I think is really detrimental to my own health. But, yeah, I still do it.
Mm. Yeah, I used to be like that, but I have got way better at it. It's really hard because I don't know, it's yours to do with, because mine was like, it's like I felt embarrassed to say this is how I'm feeling, or yeah, it's feeling like a failure again.
Yeah.
But then I started being radically honest about it, like saying exactly what those thoughts are, because they're scary to say. And then I realized a lot of people, they just kind of
don't know how to handle it.
No, they can handle it.
Really?
I realized like, by being like, yeah, like, because yeah, it was like, I just feel like I don't want to be here, like it's too hard to keep living. And people, I guess a lot of my male friends are just kind of like, huh. Like they're just, but it's like really good, because then it's not so serious. It's like they know I'm fine and I'm gonna be fine, and that they care. Like, yeah,
the worst when people are like, oh my god, like I'm so sorry, like do you want, you know, it's just like, oh,
or like overly panic, or like, oh my god,
no, you don't
or
want
like
that.
That's so weird.
But
but then also people who can have like you know, it's like, okay, this is shit, what are we gonna do? Like, how are we gonna solve this? What are you... But then I think that's a lot of education. Like, I think I've had to relearn myself, like, what are the things that help, and then communicate that with people, and then so they can, like, feed it back to me when I'm in that place when it's like, I can't get out of bed, then they can remind me, like, like, you know, the sunlight and is meant to help, and, like, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah, I think it's important to, like, know what you need and, like, what you don't need and what is helpful. And that takes, you know, ages to learn. But I think once you kind of know, I guess it's a lot easier to let the people around you know. Like, sometimes I've got a friend who I just say, like, can you come and take me for a walk? Or can you come and just maybe go for a walk and get a coffee? Or, like, just go around to someone's house and just, like, sit there and have a cup of tea and then leave after an hour, you know? And people aren't like, where are you going? You know, just, I think it's also been, like you say, really honest. And I don't know, I think I just never really say that I'm having a hard time. Like, I do, I guess, to really close friends after maybe, like, a few months. I'll be like, yeah, I'm having a really hard time. But I never really, I think for so long I just put on this facade that I was fine. Like, not when I was really sick. Or maybe even when I was really sick, I'd go into, like, a shop and just be, like, really chatty and really fine. And I'd walk out and be like, who am I? Like, am I sick or am I not sick? You know, then I get confused, like, putting this on. And then, because mental health is in your head, you think you're going crazy because you can't actually, like, see it or measure it or take a test about it. So then I'm like, am I going mad? Like, am I actually fine, but I'm actually not fine and I'm going crazy? So I think it's very hard to, like, I don't know. That's the one thing that gets me about mental health. When I do become unwell, I'm like, how unwell am I? Like, I wish I could just take a blood test to be like, okay, you're 7 out of 10 depressed. Go and do, like, you need to just stay in bed. But no one can bloody tell me. It's so annoying.
Oh my God, I have this app that's amazing.
Do you?
Cool. Sorry. No, because I realised, I was like, maybe, because actually it happened when I was in Melbourne. I had this really depressive bit when I was talking to Tom McDonald, the Melbourne footballer who's been on this podcast. He was asking me.
He's married to a girl I went to school with, Ruby.
He was like saying on the podcast, like, why do you think you have been so depressed? And then I was like, maybe it's hormonal. Like, I actually should, as part of taking better care of myself, be like tracking this, and maybe there's an app. So anyway, so there's this thing called Mind Doc, and 3 times a day it asks you questions, and it's really interesting because it's obviously there's stuff to do with OCD, there's stuff to do with maybe bipolar, but there's just depression, anxiety. Like it's asking questions like, schizophrenia. No, different questions. Okay. So, but even about alcoholism, like all these things. So it's just asking like.
Sounds like it takes a lot of time.
No, it's super quick. It's super quick and it's fun. It's actually like I love doing it because I'm getting to know it. So it will be like 10 questions, but it might be like, do you often like hear things that aren't there or something? Yeah. And for me, it's just like, no, that's no. But then when it's like, do you feel like you've been a burden to others lately? It's like when I'm in a bad place, that will be like, yes, but when I don't know, lots of different, and even about body image, like all these questions. And then it asks you how you feel. You can put words, and that's kind of helpful for me because it's like, I feel awful, but it's like, what am I feeling? Am I feeling like heartbroken? Am I feeling lonely? Am I feeling agitated? And then it collects all this data and it shows you. The first time I did it, it was like, seek medical attention ASAP.
Got emergency.
Because it was just like a very depressing month. But then I can actually see it. It's like, oh, this month.
Yeah, that's a good idea. It's good to do those things.
But I think there's lots of apps like that. Yeah. So, obviously it's not as perfect as getting a blood test, but
as close as we can come at the moment.
Yeah. But because what do you think stops you in that first week or something of feeling down from telling? Is it just you prefer being on your own during those times?
Well, I definitely tell my family, and like I know my early warning signs. I can almost like predict that it's coming on.
What are they?
I get really bitchy about about people. Like I just get really irritated. Not bitchy, but I get really irritated with people. Not to their face, but like I just get irritated like with friends or the public or like just anyone who's in my way. I kind of get headaches. I get really sore back. What else do I get? There's lots of things. Got like a list of them. I just crave to eat like bad, like shitty junk food. I've got all these things, but it's almost like I'm not always as good as recognizing it as like my mum will tell me, and then like I might recognize it a bit more. But I think it's, I don't know. I guess I don't tell anybody because I'm like, oh, maybe it will just last like a week, and like I'm not gonna like tell everyone if it's just like over. But I don't know why I don't tell anybody. I guess it's not that I feel like embarrassed or shame. I just think, I guess I don't want to be that friend who's always sick. Like I don't want to be like, oh yeah, Olivia, like she's in and out all the time, like she's always unwell, then she gets better, and then she's sick again. And like I don't want to use it as an excuse. I'm like someone, if I say I'm going to be somewhere or do something, I really will do it. I don't like letting people down. But I have actually like, I think I've done like twice. Like if I'm meant to be at a friend's or something, I message you, be like, hey, I'm really not great. Like I can't get out of bed. Do you mind if we like reschedule? And of course everyone's like, that's fine. But yeah, I think I just don't want to be that friend who's always sick. Mm-hmm. And that's, no one's ever put that on me. It's just like me. I don't want to, I just think that. Mm. And I know my friends probably don't think that of me. Mm. And like, it's not true, but I still don't want to be that person who's always like just not well. Yeah, that's probably why.
Yeah. But I guess if it's something like period pain or something, for example, it's like it's like if you get really bad period pain every month and you know it's like you're just not going to be able to do anything for like one day, and then it's like people,
and it's not your fault either.
Yeah, it's not your fault, and also people don't care. It's not like, oh fuck, Olivia, like she always has period pain, like I don't want to be friends with her anymore. It's just like depressed. Because it's almost, it's kind of just like, well, that's, it's just like we all have our burdens to bear, and it's like that's a really rough card you were dealt, but it's like people have trust. It's like, oh, you're amazing, like that you can take care of yourself and live independently and live overseas. And I think that was my thing with the radical honesty. It was kind of surprising how people, I guess it's like, because someone else kind of like, aren't people like worried, like I'm telling them that, but then I realized like, oh, they just actually have confidence in my ability to manage it or something. I don't know. Yeah,
I actually would like to work on being more honest with people. I don't like lying. I mean, I will say, like things haven't been great, but I never go into like probably the extent to how bad things really are. I'll just be like, I've been struggling. Like the other day I saw a friend and she was like, how have you been? And I was like, actually, to be honest, I've been struggling with my mental health a bit. And she asked me, she was like, oh, what's been going on? Or like, what do you think it was? And I was like, I couldn't really think. No one had really asked me that before. And I just like, she was like you said, like very just like fine about it. But I never really say that. But I never would go into detail and be like, I've actually been like suicidal. I can't get out of bed. I've seen my doctor like every day for the last month. Like, stuff like that. I would never say that. But I would like to work on it. Just being like more honest.
Because I think, I guess this actually just happened at this random like networking event I went to when I was saying, so it was a Cambridge thing, and I was saying to someone like, actually when I was at Cambridge I was struggling so much, and there's so much talk about mental health everywhere, but I like couldn't tell anyone, and had no one to, I just felt like I couldn't talk to anyone about it. And then I started telling this whole story, and I was like, oh my god, sorry, like don't need to talk about it, to this woman. And she was like, she kept saying like, don't apologize. And then afterwards she like told me something she was struggling with, but because I had been open about it and been like, no one talks about this, and like what it means, like you're isolated, but then still at the same time thinking like, oh my god, I'm so weird that I'm dealing with this. It's like, no, so many people are dealing with this, but none of us not dealing with the same exact specific thing. Like hers was long COVID, but she was able to be like, I'm really struggling. And I don't know, it just like built that intimacy, I guess.
I definitely think vulnerability like, breeds vulnerability. And I think even actually I've noticed since I've been really unwell, and I guess the whole of Melbourne knew because Melbourne's a small place. I feel like a lot of people come up to me and like want to talk about their own mental health a lot of the time, which like is pretty amazing, and I really like appreciate that, and I think it's pretty like special, and I feel like very honored that people feel like they can talk about that. Because I don't think mental health, everyone says there's not much of a stigma anymore, but I think there's such a huge stigma, and like I think there's such a huge stigma about mental health.
And can we also talk quickly about the what? Sorry, we've like totally like derailed like this conversation.
Hours. Sorry.
No,
keep going.
No, it's my fault. I also feel bad that I'm just talking about all this stuff, and
I love it.
About the listening place.
Yes.
So you volunteer at this amazing place. Because hopefully I will do it when I sort out my job thing.
Yeah.
To work on the work on the desk or whatever. So it's people... So basically it's in-person place in London where people who are feeling suicidal, because of course, and this has been meant, and I can put the resources in this episode, like there are helplines, there are things, text lines, whatever. You can... I used to volunteer for a text line as well, so people can text in when they're feeling, and if anyone is feeling like anything like this, there are people who are there to help you, and we can provide those links. But this is one that's in person. So you go in person and you meet face to face and talk to someone, which I felt like it was so important when I was struggling. It's like you want like a real human to talk to. And so you are one of the people who is trained to sit and talk to people who are struggling with feeling suicidal, right?
Yeah, I think it's the most amazing charity, and they honestly can't keep up with the amount of people who need to use the service. And the NHS are directly referring to them now, and they've had amazing like results, you know, like people, you know, you can't help everybody, but people really appreciate people taking the time to listen to them, because a lot of these people don't have anyone to listen to them, and just someone who's non-judgmentally listening and has no, you know, I guess they're not in their lives, so they're kind of removed from that, so they're not on anyone's side, or they don't know, you know, everyone's story. They just are there for the person, and they come in for 50 minutes and they have, I think, 12 sessions. 9 or 12 I can't remember, 9 sessions. And yeah, we just listen. I mean, like, I'm not a trained psychologist or psychiatrist or anything, so I'm not giving advice. I'm literally just listening, and I feel like people are kind of almost like talking to themselves through me, really. And yeah, it's an amazing charity, and I get so much out of just being there and listening to these people's stories. I feel very privileged to be able to be let into people's lives so intimately, and so, you know, people are so vulnerable, and yeah, it's amazing.
Do you ever feel pressure with that when you get... because I know, I had that with this crisis text line. Then I went through a period where I was so unwell, and then I was no longer able to help. And then and they have so many warnings. Because obviously, I guess people who have gone through shit themselves are attracted to go and help other people. It just kind of makes sense. But there are so many warnings of like, if you're struggling with this stuff, do not do this. And I was like, damn it. I was like, oh, we fine. And then I was like, nope. Not fine. And then I felt really bad that then it's like, oh my God, I should be perfectly healed so I can help other people. Do you ever struggle with that?
Well, the only thing I worried about was that it was going to kind of like make me, like trigger me, make me feel really, like remind me of my own story and stuff. But it hasn't done that at all. And I'm very conscious as soon as I walk in the door, I drop my own shit and I'm there for other people. Like, I'm not there for myself. I'm just, and you kind of do just almost like leave your stuff out, like just leave your stuff at the door, and I'm there for other people. And I think it's really important for me to be like there for other people and present, and not, you know, going through my own head or ruminating. And almost hearing other people's stories kind of takes you out of your head in a way. It sounds so strange. And like, I've done it when I haven't been well, and I'm like, should I be doing this? Probably not. But like, somehow I weirdly like just kind of go into this other zone when I'm in there, like, and I don't feel all my horrible thoughts and feelings. It kind of, yeah, I don't know, just hearing someone else is struggling, and, you know, so many of these people deal with similar things I feel like I deal with at the core, like incredible loneliness, or, you know, feeling like no one will ever love them, you know, stuff like that we all kind of feel but no one ever talks about. And it's kind of a really nice space when you get to know someone and they get to trust you. You kind of build this relationship where they do kind of open up and tell you stuff, like really, you know, stuff they're like, oh, I haven't told anyone this before, like, and I'm like, you know what, like, we don't have to talk about it, but if you want to talk about it. And they often just tell me the most incredible stuff that they have never told anyone, and it's, yeah, I feel very lucky.
Yeah, I think that problem thing is such a helpful, like, it doesn't have to be to that level, but when you're struggling because I think, well, when I deal with the depressive thoughts, it's so like everything is me and it's like I'm stuck in this place and like my life is terrible and like everyone else is super happy and perfect and their life's amazing. So then it's like talking to one friend who might be even just like, oh, so stressed because this happened at work and like, I don't know. And then it's like, oh my God, like other people have problems. Like I'm not. And it helps so much. And then when you're able to realize like, oh, yeah, I'm valuable as well because I'm able to help someone else.
Yeah. Just
by listening, it's like... And so was the training for that, was a lot of it like how to live? Because this is so much that you kind of have to educate friends and family, I think, a bit, because a lot of people jump in just everyday life, to problem solving. Oh, I feel like this is so many couples. This is like the problem. It's like one person just wants to say how they're feeling, but the other person doesn't know how to like sit with that. So then they just launch into problem solving. And then the other person's like, you don't understand me. And I think that can happen. Yeah, that's a super common thing with mental health. It's like, I feel so depressed, and people are like maybe go to the gym or something, or like they're just like,
you think I don't know that?
Yeah. So is a lot of the training like how to just sit with it and respond with, because do you just kind of respond because you don't want it to be like an interrogation, but you kind of ask some questions, but then otherwise just repeat back to them how they're feeling?
Yeah, well, I guess a lot at the first kind of like it's all role plays. So like you'll be like, we'll be in a role play together, and you'll be the listener, and I'll be the volunteer. No, you'll be the the visitor, and I'll be the volunteer, and you'll be like really difficult, and like they kind of make it worst case scenario. So like I have to deal with you if you're really difficult and yelling and stuff. But
does that ever happen?
Not really. No, it hasn't happened to me yet. Fingers crossed. But a lot of it is just how to listen, and like we don't ever really get taught how to listen by anyone or anything, like ever. And I think it's such an important skill to have. And also like not talking, like silence. I remember the person who was watching me was like, you just need to have long silences and don't be afraid of the silence. And he said like the longest silence he had with somebody was like 4 minutes, and I was like, oh my God. But yeah, I think just not being afraid of the silence, because that's where a lot of the thinking or the work kind of happens, or the magic, and it happens in the silence. Because I think, yeah, we're so quick to jump in when people speak and like even almost like interrupt them in a way. We're so eager to like, we're thinking of what to say next. When, yeah, you don't have to do that. You just kind of listen, I guess, with compassion and be non-judgmental. And yeah, don't be afraid of silence. Yeah. You don't have to do the silence now.
Amazing. Do you want to read any of your stuff? I'm like, where...
Shall I? Or are we out of time?
No.
Okay.
We're out of time. No.
I'll read this one bit.
I should have asked you that before we started, how long you wanted to go for.
I don't mind. 2 hours. Okay, this is a piece I wrote a few years ago about my grandmother. Actually, no, I'm gonna read this other piece that's about that I wrote. I am the void you have fallen back into. I am the darkness that sucks up the light. You cannot escape me, run or hide. If you run, I will find you. I am the reason everything moves so slow. I am the voice inside your head. I am the restless nights and the rocks in your shoes. I do know that it's not me you would choose. I am your worst nightmare, and I am your deepest pain. I will completely infiltrate your brain. Every single cell of you will be taken over like there is little hope from an oncoming train. The train is coming, you cannot move. You cannot run in any direction you choose. But someday, if you hang on, someday soon, maybe I'll be gone. Gone back into hibernation until the next season comes around. Now get out of your head and stop looking at the ground. I wrote that a few years ago when I was really unwell. But that's, yeah.
I feel like that just fully represents like everything you were describing about how the illness feels.
Yeah, I think sometimes I could just sum it up in a paragraph and, you know, talk about it for ages. but yeah, that piece, I guess, was how I was feeling at the time, and I guess it is how I feel when I do get depressed. So, yeah.
The last thing I want to talk about, or something, that I said that I want to cover, that I definitely do want to cover, so I'm going to ask you now, is about how you think about, monetizing the art, or make, you know, because I know this is something that so many creatives struggle with, and the idea that it's like, this internal struggle that you don't seem to have, where the people are like, oh, but is it wrong to like make money? I don't even know, because I don't even get it when people talk about selling out. I'm like, what does that mean? Selling out to me would be like if you firmly believe in something and then you're like, go, I don't know, it's like, it's each everyone's own. I guess the question is coming from me having met several creatives, I guess, in the last several months, people who really struggle with like, I don't want the world to see like, this is my art that I've produced, but marketing it is wrong, and like the world seeing it is wrong, and like, and then you're kind of just stuck in this place where you're quite bitter, and then you don't like anyone who has made money, therefore are like these evil people. Or
I think it's hard because I think that is that real struggle that if you make money from your art, you're kind of like selling out, and if it's not like art, like pure art or whatever. But I think,
where does that come from? Because it's like we have to eat and
like you look at David Trickley, and like he's done incredibly well. Like, do you know David Trickley?
No.
He's like, anyway, you would know him if you saw his work, but he's done so well. He's got books. He's done like the 4th plinth of Trafalgar Square. He's done like tea towels.
Trafalgar Square, I know.
Yeah, you know the one. So he's done so much stuff. Like he's got like whatever, like postcards, tea towels, like every kind of merchandise. He does his like printmaking. He's like done incredibly well, but he's like totally gone commercial. And I think there is some criticism of that. From people.
Oh, because the tea towels is like crossing the line.
Well, I guess if people think like, you know, the fact that you're making postcards and tea towels and like oven mitts and stuff, is it really like art? But then I guess there's kind of like, I would say he is a commercial artist, but then I guess you've got to, if you want to be a fine artist, it is like, well, how do you want to make money? Like, do you want to make money off your art, or do you want to always be working part-time and having 2 or 3 days in your studio a week? But I think to be an artist, you have to have your work out there. And I think people maybe think it's like not a tasteful way to get your work out there, say on Instagram, or like, I don't know. But I think I guess probably think like that it kind of taints the work. But I don't think it does, because art is made to be seen. Like if you're making it for yourself, it's a different type of art. But if you're making it to be seen and to be like read or whatever by other people, how else do you get it out there? You know, like you have to kind of try and make, you know, you have to try and put it on Instagram, or have a website, or make little books, or talk about it, or stick it at the bus stop. You know, I think you've just got to like, I mean, and this is like, I need to do this myself. You just really need to be brave and put yourself out there. And I think it's so, like, you will get rejected and people will hate your work. And I think it's hard when it's so personal to you, if someone doesn't like your work, or, you know, whatever, sees what you see in it. But I think you've just got to accept that everyone's coming from a different place, and if it's truly what you want to do and make, and you really believe in it, then you believe in it, and that's the biggest thing.
And that's how you feel about the work you make?
Yeah, I feel I really do believe in my work. I think for a long time I kind of, sometimes now I still think I'm a bit of a fraud. I'm like, oh God, like, am I just writing because I have an illness, or like, am I actually a good writer without this illness, you know? But I think I do believe in my work, and I do think, not all of it, but I think some of it is like okay, and I think you do have to believe in it, really. You really do. I think that's the same in anything in life. You have to believe in your own work or your own... You have to believe in yourself, you know, and not in a like a wanky kind of like I'm the best, but you have to have kind of a quiet, like bubbling, I think, confidence. Self-confidence and belief that like what you're doing is okay and it's good work. Yeah. And
that approval you're seeking, like you're giving it to yourself, so you don't need anything external.
Yeah, I guess you are like, you do like believe in yourself and you do approve of yourself, and I think that's the greatest thing, but isn't that filters through everything in life, you know, like if you don't believe or approve or think that you're enough, then everyone else's opinion is constantly going to like get you down.
Yeah.
So I think you do have to have kind of like a strong self-belief, I would say.
And have you just kind of always had that?
I don't think so. I think like I come from a very supportive family. I think like my brothers are very supportive as well, and I've never been told that like you can't do that or you're not good enough. Like definitely there were people who said that to me like at art school, or like teachers who were just like, that's not very good or whatever. But like, and I was kind of like, oh God, it's not good. Like I'm never going to make it. Like why don't I just drop out and do like something else? And yeah, so I definitely didn't always have it. But I think now I'm kind of like, you know what, like I have something to say. Like I've had stuff, really hard stuff happen to me in my life that I can write about, and like maybe other people can read it and be like, oh yeah, I feel like that sometimes, or like I relate to that. And I think if like someone finds comfort in my work or it makes them feel something, then I feel like I've kind of done what I set out to do.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Is there anything else you want to talk about? Oh,
I think that's all. We can do another one day.
Yeah, for sure. When we're promoting your book.
Yeah, my book that I'm trying to write or finish or put together. Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. So then I will ask you the last 3 questions that everyone gets.
Okay.
How do you stay grounded?
Walking. I'm a massive walker. Like I'll walk like 20, 30 Ks a day. It's probably a problem. It's definitely a problem. Yeah.
Nice. I think I'm the same. Okay, sorry, I was just trying to write up. My average steps this week's 24,000.
Oh my God, amazing.
Like I'm also obsessed with walking.
I've also got a problem.
What's the next? Sorry, not trying to one up you. Sometimes I feel like I sound like such a wanker on this podcast. No. Fuck, what's the next question? Oh, what book, is there a book that's had a big impact on your life?
I'm actually, ironically, not a good reader, being a writer. I find reading incredibly difficult. I read a page and cannot remember the page before, no matter anything. Just, I can't do it. So now I highlight things when I read books. But the book that I really love is Man's Search for Meaning by Viktor Frankl. I love that book. I love his philosophy on life, and I've got a few of his other books which I'm currently kind of flicking through. But yeah, I'd say that one.
Do you want to summarize the philosophy?
Well, I'd say that he just kind of says that like you can go through anything if you have kind of a reason, or yeah, I don't know, it's hard to, yeah, it is easy to summarize, but my brain's a bit puzzled.
The bit that
what's the quote he says?
I think that, yeah, because sorry, I wasn't trying to put you on the spot, it's so helpful, I think, for people to know this. The bit that sticks with me is our last freedom, because he's in,
that's right,
concentration camps, and he's saying even in like in any situation we all about choice, and our last freedom is our attitude, how we respond.
That's the quote. Yeah, pretty much, like you always have a choice, whatever situation you're in, of how to respond, and I really think that's an amazing quote.
And last question, what 3 words describe the best version of you?
Oh. I would say creative, compassionate, and I guess I have a good sense of humor when I'm the best version of myself. Yeah.
Amazing. Thanks for coming on.
Thank you so much. See you, everyone.